Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's pick up with Nia. Obviously, Brainy kind of gave her the advice because no matter what she did, she couldn't track down the dream totem. But Brainy told her not to be so focused on that, to basically make her view much wider, and that ultimately points her in the right direction. So she goes to visit the doctor. Now, I knew because of the intro, I was like, oh, maybe this has something to do with her sister. I didn't expect her sister to be the one she'd run into. Neither did she. But it's like her sister changed her name, and as Nia talks about it earlier, she ran away from their dad took all their mom's books and everything, so she hasn't seen her sister since their blowout, and it's they had a huge her and her dad had a huge falling out as well. So, Maeve and their dad, because at the end of the day, their dad took Nia's side and called Maeve out for the way she talked to about Nia, when it came to their mom and everything. So the siblings are reunited now, and obviously for Nia, it's I'm not trying to hear what you got to say about this whole situation, but I need your help finding the dream totem. Which I love that she's like, wait, you don't know all this? Why don't you crack open the books? What book is she going to crack open? Don't you literally have all the books related to this? She wouldn't even know where to figure, because it's yeah, you studied this your entire life, but Nia hasn't. She wasn't planning on this. This was literally dropped on her lap. Because I don't know how much time has necessarily passed between season 4 and now, whether it has been essentially the 2 to 3 years it has been outside of the show, or has it been less time? You never know about the time frame between seasons and stuff like that. I'd assume I think it is 2021, so it's within the confines of the show. Maybe not. Maybe it's still 2020, but at the very least, it's been maybe at least still 2 years. Regardless, it's just, I guess it's all these books I found are all books you can find anywhere else. But it's as she says, she spent her entire life, planning for this. Nia never had any plans on becoming Dreamer, never knew it was a possibility. And so, and also, Maeve doesn't know what Nia went through. She got tricked by Nixley to bring their mom back, but only for 24 hours, just because she didn't have anyone else she could rely on with this. But her sister knows about the dream totem, has kind of been reading up about it, and figured out that it's in the dream realm. And it's she even has a tapestry that's kind of a laid out map for it. But Nia's right, I might as well bring you along too, because you're the only one that can really translate this. We're not in the best places, but I need to kind of put my issues with you aside so we can join forces together and tackle this dream totem situation. And I love that Nia kind of flexed a little bit to me, oh, let me text my boyfriend. Let me text Brainy. He's my boyfriend. He's a 12th level intellect. I'm you're just flexing right now. What are you doing? Trying to oh, this is my boyfriend. I was that's actually super cute for her to say that. I don't know if she's ever I don't know if they've ever said the relationship out loud before. She's he's my boyfriend. I was I don't think they've ever clarified their relationship like that. I don't think it's ever been oh, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. I guess it's just kind of unwritten, or kind of what's talked about in between episodes. But I thought that was super cute and adorable, and also oh yeah, sis, you're in my life. A lot's changed for me. Oh, here's my boyfriend. He's super smart. I don't know. I think that's super cute on some level, dude. But nevertheless, they go in the dream realm. And obviously, it isn't just the forest, because that's as far as Nia's ever gone, but there's a realm beyond it. And luckily, the necklace that Maeve has from their mom, it amplifies dream stuff, so it was able to point them in the right direction. And so, once again, it's just oh, why don't you crack open a book, and Nia's just letting it slide, and it's right, let's go in here. Sadly, Nixley's already found her way in here with the help of her gauntlet, which there's a lot to kind of talk about that Nixley thing really quickly. The fact is that the gauntlet knows all there is to know about it. It's oh yeah, you had a crush on Mixie's cousin when you were 10. You were whispering his name into your pillows. I was that's so funny to think Nixley would do something like that. But it's just, once again, we've only got to know this version of Nixley. We only got little peeks into who she was before, and even then, it wasn't that was her when she was leading her coup against her father. So even then, but it's knowing oh, there was obviously you were a more stable, cute person at one point in time. I just love that. I thought that was super neat. I should also talk about this, since I had it in the top of my head, and I should have brought it up at the beginning. I don't know if this happened when they were airing TV. I'd assume it was because usually the app version and the TV version typically coincide, but what I was bringing up is like, I watched it on the CW app, and like I said, maybe this was different on TV, but I don't think it would be. But they played the intro like, oh, like, you know, my name's Kara Zor-El, and like, I'm, you know, that thing. Like, they haven't played that in a long time, and I think it's very befitting that they play. I mean, for one, we need to see it again because it's the final season, but two, very befitting because obviously Saturday was DC Fandom, and one of the things in DC Fandom was like a section where, you know, a lot of the cast got together from Supergirl, like almost all the like the major cast members past it. Those who are still still on the show, those who aren't, even the newer people, I think her name's Peta, the actress who plays Nixley. She was there. The actress who plays Andrea and William were there as well. But like, yeah, it was just like the entire cast together. Chris Wood, Makad Brooks was there, as well as Jeremy, the actor who played Win, is there too. So it's just like this nice, like, oh, let's reminisce about some of, you know, what Supergirl, this whole show is meant to them, and just fond memories and stuff like that. Them laughing and joking, kind of, you know, being sad to kind of say goodbye and everything. So I thought that was beautiful. So playing that intro at the beginning of like her, like, me and my friends are going to save the day. It's like, it was very beautiful. And I wonder, did they do that specifically because of the DC Fandom Day? Maybe not. I don't know. Just more often than not, it just hasn't played. Or maybe I just missed it and just haven't realized it. But whatever the case may be, I just really wanted to add that in there. But circling back to the Nixley thing, I do like that like this AI system knows all that it knows about her. It's like, well, even if this is from her secret admirers, like, how would they know all this about her? And then part of me is like, you don't think her secret? I was about to say, I was like, I'd assume like it had to be Lex, but I'm like, you don't think her secret admirer is actually her brother or something, like actually trying to help her get? I was like, no, I don't see that happening. I still think it would be Lex, especially the way the episodes end, but we'll get to there when we get there. But it has to be Lex, and I'm like, but it's just like, I guess programmed it. I guess the moment it connected with her, like it tapped into all her memories. Like, how would you know everything about her like that? That, you know, information like that. So it had to be like, and why the AI is manifesting itself as her, and be like, oh, I am you. So they're working together, and she was able to get into the dream world, and she's simply just following Nia and Maeve as they dive deeper into the dream realm, looking for the dream totem. And obviously you have Nia kind of showing off her powers, like making a platform that levitates, that takes them higher so they can see the other spiders. It's like, oh my god, this is so amazing. It's like, yeah, we could do this again. And in one moment they touch hands, they like clasp their hands together, fingers and all, and then they kind of pull apart because right, things are so awkward between us. But yeah, let's go. Check this out. And they do, and obviously Nia suits up because like, we don't know what danger could be awaiting. And Maeve proceeds to try and snatch the dream totem for himself. Oh man, I was so surprised. I was like, no, I knew you were going to do it the moment they mentioned, like, yeah, you get the dream totem, you get dream powers. I'm like, is that what Maeve's going to be doing here? She's going to try and snatch it for herself? But the moment she tries it, because you have to be someone of purity, and she tried to grab it, and it's like, nope. And it's like, you are not true. You try to steal your sister's power, and just even, it's like, Nia's like, wait, what? It's like, and then like her sister goes on the diatribe of like, this is all I've ever wanted. I've worked so hard for it. It should have been mine, but you took it from me. And it's just like, and going on and going on and on and on and on. And then like Nia just finally snaps back at her like, what are you talking about? You getting on me? Does your selfishness no end? I'm literally telling you this is putting the universe in danger, and you're up here still trying to grab for power? It's like, I didn't want this. I didn't ask for it. I didn't have a choice in the matter. I tried to like give you the powers, but they didn't work. I get you spent your entire life. But the fact is that yes, I'm Dreamer. Yes, I'm a woman, and at the end of the day, I have no pity for you. I'm not going to like apologize anymore to you for me being who I am. Like, the fact is that you can't accept that. That's more on you. And it's just like her sister kind of like, yeah, because like Nia's never like really stood up to her like that. It's just like, because for her, and Nia talks about it later on, it's like she thought this was a chance like to finally like yeah, like she wasn't willing to kind of put all their issues aside, you know, but it's like, right, together, like, I thought we were in this together, but to find out you're just using this as an opportunity, like, how selfish can you get? You know, I told you that someone named Nixley is after this to destroy the universe, and you're not listening. You still took this as an opportunity. That means everything we've shared in this moment, like us working together in this, it meant nothing to you because you were going to stab me in the back the moment you got a chance. And Nixley shows up, but obviously you have even despite everything, it's like you're still my sister. So like when it's like, oh, who taught you that, Nia? Was it your mommy, your sister? And then she aims at Maeve, but despite everything, Nia's still protecting because you are my sister. And Maeve gives her the necklace that boosts her power. This is for using me, and then this is for hurting my friends. And Nixley sadly gets away with the dream totem because she didn't actually have to like go through like any trial or anything, because it was protected by I think the Guardian itself is all there was to it. Like, as long as the Guardian was in it, you have to get through the Guardian and get the totem. That in itself is a trial enough. So all you had to do was break past the Guardian, dissipate it, and and so Nixley made it off with the totem. And so Nia and Maeve finally had that heart-to-heart where Maeve's like, I'm sorry, like, everything I ever said to you, like, I've always known you were a woman, but I just said whatever I needed to because I was in so much pain. I was hurting the moment I didn't get some, like, I dedicate my entire life for it, and so I was in pain having that ripped away from me, and I said all I said about you not being a real woman just so I could hurt you, so you could be as much pain as me, but I'm sorry, you are my sister, like, can you forgive me? And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh, I was kind of thinking she was going to say yes. But it's like, no, like, the fact of the matter is I'm done. Like, the fact is that for her, it's like, you're my big sis. I needed you. I needed you so much, like, during all this. I had no one to turn to. We both had to grieve mom alone. We couldn't be there for each other just because you let this kind of affect you. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to just straight up forgive you for saying all that you said. Like, it doesn't, like, you made a choice to say what you said and be pissed at me. Then you had the nerve to like change your name and disappear. Like, I'm supposed to just up and forgive you for that, and I can't, because she's like, luckily I had Kara and Brainy to see me through things, because the sad thing is they were more family to her than you were. You're her own sister, and they were more family to her in that regard. They've been there for me. I was able to find my way through this because of them, and it's like, not because of you. But at the very least, I could give you a second, final chance that we can be sisters again. So they hug. So it's like, she hasn't forgiven her. It's like, what's said, what was done in the past is done, and we can't change that, and I'm not going to forget that. But we can at least find a way to move on. And I think this is an important thing for Nia for two reasons. One, it's important because it's a necessary thing. I think this is her relationship with Maeve has always been like something like that's been like deep in her heart of kind of like holding her back. And I think even Maeve giving her the necklace, I think this will be her like using her powers and like push her powers to a level they weren't before. Plus, she doesn't have to go through things alone. It's like now her and Maeve are in a better spot. Like, Maeve can help her interpret her dreams and understand what it's mean to be dreamer, because it's like, very much like Barry and Iris are the Flash. Like, the same thing could be like this for both of them. It's like, together we're the dreamer. Like, yes, I have the power, but you have the know-how, and like together we could be the perfect team, We could operate in a way that no previous dreamers ever worked before, because it's like we can both work together, like, making up for what the other is lacking. We can do that as sisters, so that was beautiful in its own right. And it's also like, yeah, call dad because he misses you, so I think that was I think it's like it was a necessary thing, and I think it was a good like way to kind of round this episode out, but also like closing chapters for like Nia Soares. Obviously there's still more episodes, but I think this is a good like final like chunk of like her story to like to kind of be setting this up to be kind of like the through lines for like up until like the end of where her story ends up. So I thought that was fascinating. And I also really liked that the flip side of this episode, we have Kara and everyone obviously dealing with the dream monster that got released, but at the same time, Kara is getting the president of Kaznia as well as Kota Maltese coming together. Like, obviously there's still underlying issues there, but she wants to give the interview that could bridge the gap and, once again, like make a true and lasting peace. Like, things were good before, but it's like, right, with this interview, we could really put a lot of stuff on the side. And obviously William wants to give his hand in giving mock trial runs and stuff like that, which Kara is excited about, but she also has to balance the Supergirl thing. And I think that's so fascinating. Yes, it's been an issue in the past, but it hasn't been the biggest issue in a long time of like the balance between Kara and Supergirl. And I thought that was such a fascinating thing that, like, even at the end here, that's still, like, because she even says it later on, like, ever since she came out of the Phantom Zone, she feels like she's, like, a step behind in every, like, because Nixley has kind of thrown her off her game, and it's just, like, every time she feels like, oh, like, I'm catching up with things, but it's all, like, I'm always one step behind in certain regards, because, like, Nixley has kind of thrown a lot off, like, she's gotten off kilter. I mean, to be fair, she was gone for, like, weeks, so... Obviously, she had brought this to Andrea about the interview and stuff like that, which Andrea was like, oh, yeah, I mean, but doesn't sound really interesting. Kara's like, wait, what? But then, like, Nixie's like, yeah, we can, like, compare this to, like, Oprah and, like, you know, the Prince Harry thing. This could be like, Kara, Danvers, and the Presidents or something like that. Like, trying to sex it up and spice it up so people will come clicking on it and checking it out. So... And there was a person that she was supposed to meet beforehand. I forgot who it was. Like, Andrea had set up something to meet with someone beforehand, but sadly, Kara had to bail on it because of this whole situation. Because ultimately, the nightmare creature was, like, running rampant, and they had to stop it. So they put up a giant dome that separated half of National City, which that in itself turns into a whole problem. Because obviously the way they've kind of gone about things recently, and just National City kind of being in the dark about the way you've handled things, is kind of like, yeah, there's been a little unrest about that. Then all of a sudden, this dome coming up, half the city being trapped with the monster, half the city being trapped. Yeah, families and children, like parents and children being separated. People can't get to work. So it's like, there's just a lot of issues that's brought up. But obviously it's like, right, we can't let that monster get to the nuclear power plant, or that be a whole issue in itself. But then they also have to deal with, like, the governor saying, like, oh, you're wrong for doing this. You should have given us a heads up. Even William saying, like, yeah, the Super Friends should have probably, like, told some people. It's like, yeah, but there was no time. It's like, yeah, William's like, I get it. I understand. He's I just hope, like, their recent successes haven't gotten to the head. But Carr's like, no, they haven't. It's just like they've always done. They've just done because at the very least, in the past, they had the DEO, which acted as that buffer zone between, like, oh, what we're doing and, like, you know, the government having a better idea. Like, because they are kind of on their own. At least some argument could be, like, with the DEO, there was some checks and balances of, like, right, they had a government, they had someone that, at least they had the DEO, which had a government oversight to some extent. So, like, they had the through line of, like, letting people know what was what. But now, since the DEO's no more and the Super Friends are just kind of acting on their own, it kind of begs the question of, like, yeah, they seem like superpowers unchecked. It's kind of, you know. And I thought that'd be an issue. And maybe this still could come up later on, but I thought this chaos would actually lead to a situation of, like, oh, Lex could take advantage of this and paint Kara as the villain, which Nixley kind of wants to. It's like, oh, like, people want to truthfully, like, believe in her, like, have hope in her. It's like, no, she's not the hero. She's the, I'm doing what I'm doing to reclaim my world from, like, some megalomaniac that is my father, even though she's kind of a megalomaniac herself, working with a fellow megalomaniac, you know, so that's a whole issue within itself. But it's like, I feel like Nixley could still end up turning this towards and turning everyone against Kara or out of Supergirl, so. But that balancing act of trying to do everything as Supergirl, because it's like, right, like, that monster was running rampant. I couldn't just, like, you know, after it, you know, well, because basically the people started rioting near the barrier, like, wanting to tear it down, but Kara had to show up to calm them down. But then you also had the governor, like, at first giving them a limit of, like, 12 hours, and it's like, well, now you've got one, which is like, hey, within this time frame, Brainy and Lena are working on a device that could open up the dream portal, and we can push this nightmare creature through. But sadly, you know, at the same time this is all happening, Kara is missing work, and Andrea's chewing her out for it, because it's like, yes, I never had an issue with, like, hey, you were going for 4 weeks working on something with Cat Grit, came out with nothing. You going away all the time, I was okay with it because it never affected your work, because your work was flawless. But now you're misstepping and everything's falling behind. Do not mess this up, you know? And obviously, it's like, this interview is super important, so Kara didn't want to miss it. And obviously, the rest of the Super Friends, you know, it's like, Alex is like, no, don't worry about it. Me, John, Lena, and Brady were all over this. Like, you focus on the interview. But she couldn't, because, especially because the military was moving out, the barrier was coming down. It's just kind of like, yeah, everything was happening at once. Because the president had, like, informed the Air Force and kind of been talking them into, like, you know, mobilizing the troops for this, Because at the end of the day, the governor was scared. Everyone was scared because no one really knew what was going on. So William was like, right, the people need to hear from the Girl of Steel. But they're just like, no, she's got the interview thing to go on. So she's like, I couldn't do this. I'm sorry. And left because she had to do the interview as Kara. But when the time came, she couldn't leave her friends alone to face this alone because it's like, right, like I need to be there to help them. Like the thing is, Kara takes on a lot on her own. Like, yeah, she has her friends help and she is there to, but for her, it's like, I can't let them shoulder things alone. Like it's on me to like help out as well. You know, when I became Supergirl, I took this upon myself, you know, but sadly, everything, like, yeah, luckily the Air Force showed up and they were causing issues because they were distracting the monster. It's like, you're ruining our plan to get rid of it, but luckily they were still able to knock it into the portal without much issue. But Kara missed the interview, so, and now it's just kind of like, for Kara, it's just like, you know, William's like, you had a bad day. To be fair, half the city was cut off from itself, so like this was like it's just one thing after another. Like, you're entitled to have a bad day, but for Kara, it's like, I'm not, because on both fronts, it's like, I wasn't there when the city needed me to calm them down as Supergirl, and I wasn't able to help with this Kaznia and Kota Maltese situation as Kara, which that could have, like, there's so much good she does. It's both Kara and Supergirl, and it's like, she feels like she mainly, like, let people down with the Kara situation, but she felt like she let people down in Supergirl. So it wasn't a total win on the Supergirl front, and, you know, it was kind of a loss on the Kara front. But William's like, at the end of the day, you know, you told me what Cat Grant told you, you know, because for her too, it's like, she's Supergirl. Like, she has to be on top of everything if she wants to make sure this world is a better place. Like, whether it is as Kara or Supergirl, she has to be on top of everything. Like I said, there were issues in the past, but she did find some means of balancing it all. At least she had, like, support from everyone to balance, but it's like, it's a little harder to balance things now just because everything was going wrong. Once again, she's kind of been off balance lately. But William said, like you told me once, that Cat Grant said, you can have it all, just not at the same time. So you got to decide what you want and kind of give it your full all until you get there. And so in the moment William said that to her, I figured I knew what Kara was going to do. And she goes up to Andrea. Andrea's like, yeah, you let me down, but I seized this interview opportunity again, so you get one more shot. And she's like, give it to William. Like, he knows all. He's done the mock interview. He's done the research. He knows all what's going on. Other stuff I was working on, I'll pass on to other people. But you were right when you said I wasn't here, and I haven't been here fully. So I quit. And I figured she had to let Kara Danvers go, because right now with a villain like Nixley going around, she can't be splitting her time between being Kara and Supergirl. It's like, I gotta be Supergirl all the time right now. And that's something she dealt with in the past too. I want to say, wasn't it season 3 storyline, if I remember correctly, was like her being like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be Kara Danvers, maybe I need to be Supergirl like all the time. Now this is a different circumstance. Like, she needs to save the city and be there for them, so she needs to be Supergirl all the time. And I'm curious what that means, because it is that struggle of being like this all-powerful superhero, is that people rely on you a lot, and it's like, it is the burden. Like, a lot of superheroes, I feel like, have that burden, but I feel like it weighs the heaviest on both Superman and like Supergirl the most, of just like, yeah, you're supposed, especially with your superhero, knowing everything, like hearing everything, and it's just kind of like, sadly, having to pick and choose like when you step in, like, because that's the thing of like, oh, isn't it selfish of you to kind of have a normal life? Well, you could be out there superheroing it up 24/7, but it's like, no, like, you can't just, you'll burn yourself out that way, and you can't be everywhere all at once. You can only do what you're able to do, you know, be there for who you're able to be there for. I mean, this is a world filled with heroes who are helping in their own regards as well, you know? So I think that's always kind of like, when it comes to the supers, I think it always, like, that ends up being the issue of like, right, like, is it right for me to just have a regular life? And in a time like this, where I'm not giving it my all as Kara, not giving it my all as Supergirl, I have to give it my all as Supergirl, because Nixley now has a dream totem. She might not, like, at the very least, the thought was like, with the dream totem, she'll have dream powers, so maybe that compensates for, like, she'll be able to manifest the totem of hope, or at least use her powers to manufacture one. I thought maybe Lex would kind of help in that front. Still could, but at the very least, it sets the fact is that, she ended up having to quit. And even Andrea was like kind of shocked. It's like, yeah, because Kara is really good at what she does. She's like the best reporter they have there. But like for Kara, it's like, this is what I need to do. And she goes to William and she's like, right, I should have listened to you before. I'm sorry I wasn't there before. But to make up for it, I want to apologize to the city. So will you help me? And so she does. She has to make her public apology to them. But like, I haven't been there for you, but me and the Super Friends, we will not let Nixley win. Which Nixley does get some backup from. It's Lex, but it seems like the dream, like obviously the AI of that, I guess at its core, it is everything that Lex is. So it probably like all it needed was the dream totem to manifest it and make him real. So he's like a dream version of Lex based on everything that Lex is. So he's essentially a carbon copy. So yeah, the two biggest megalomaniacs working together. I figured this would be the thing. I just didn't expect it to be like this late in the final season. Like we only got like a couple episodes to go. I mean, but to be fair, it's kind of almost befitting that Lex would make an appearance near the end of it all. Like, of course, like he's the big time baddie. I mean, he basically kind of like he was weaved into everything that went down in season 4, but he was only in 3 episodes in totality, like actually on screen for 3 episodes. So. And then obviously did all he did during Crisis, which, man, think about Crisis on Infinite Earths. I've rewatched 1, 2, and 3. I want to say I did, maybe not. At least I've seen bits and pieces of them again, but I want to rewatch that all the way through. Like I've seen, like I said, I think I've talked about it. I've seen like every other crossover at least twice, because you get that urge of like, oh, I want to watch one of the crossovers. So, but yeah, so they just I think I talked about that last time. I just haven't taken time to do it. But regardless of all of that, I'm very excited to see where the next episode ends up taking us with all of this. Only 4 episodes left. Yeah. So I'm excited to see where the next episode ends up taking us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.